So welcome everybody to our tonight's webinar, which is Managing Electronics, Gaming and Social Media. And my name is Jolene and I am a mental health trainer for the YMCA. I'm also an adolescent counsellor of the arts and a yoga and mindfulness coach as well. So this evening we also have Laura from the YMCA, and she will be keeping an eye on the Q&A function. So please do put any questions you have into the Q&A box and we will do our best to answer them for you. Okay, so title of the webinar, as I said, is Managing Electronics, Gaming and Social Media. So this webinar is for parents of children of all ages who would like to gain a better understanding of the pros and cons of social media and online gaming. We will send out the slides after this session, so you will have access to them, but please put your fears and hopes into the chat. And as I say, we'll do our best to answer them, and we will. There will also be some links as well that you might find helpful. Okay, so this webinar is designed to equip you with tools and knowledge of how you can help yourself and your child. It's non-judgmental, and so please don't berate yourself for anything. You're doing the best you have with the skills you have, and it's great that you're attending the webinar tonight. So please be aware that these guidelines are generally aimed at neurotypical children, and not everything here will be appropriate for your child. So you know your child best, and so please take that into consideration. The hints and tips may not be suitable to neurodivergent individuals. And if we can answer any of those questions at the end, we will. So the objectives of the webinar is to look at how things have changed over time. So since the coronavirus, our use of social media and connecting to others has increased. While social media can be an enriching tool in our lives and a place where we can connect with others and learn new things, for a small proportion of people, it can have a negative effect on their mental health and well-being. So this webinar aims to give parents and carers an overview of the pros and cons of electronic and online world that's a massive part of our children's lives. We're going to reflect on how it's changed over time from when we were younger and what this means for us as parents. We will look at tips and strategies ranging from how to prevent these things becoming an issue and how to regain management of them when things have gone awry. So let's have a look how times have changed. The internet has become so much a part of our lives now that it's almost impossible to imagine a life without it. And for our children and young people, there wasn't a life before the internet. So the internet has always been part of their lives. It is their normal. Just a bit of background, the World Wide Web was created in 1989, but it didn't really become a thing until the 90s. So you might be surprised to know that Google wasn't invented until 1998, but it feels like it's always been around. And the internet has changed life as we know it, from putting stores out of business to making entire technologies obsolete. So remember a time when you had to flick through the yellow pages to find a phone number, walk to the end of the road to use a payphone. Fax machines were the old emails, and thumbing your way through a map to find directions and then spending 15 minutes trying to work out how to fold the map up again. So we now use email, mobile phones, Google Maps, floppy disks have been replaced by the cloud, and online shopping has replaced catalogues. Pages were the best way to contact someone before mobile phones existed. We connected with our friends by playing outside, riding our bikes, climbing trees, playing games such as hopscotch, football, basketball, and a lot of time was spent outdoors. And we often hear the older generation tell of stories about going out from early morning until tea time. So life was very different. So let's have a look at the types of electronics. So computers were first invented in 1945. Gaming consoles were invented in 1972. Smartphones in 1992, laptops in 1994, and tablets and iPads in 2010. Social media first began in 1997. The first online platform was called 6 Degrees, and it was based on the theory that everyone in the world is connected to everyone else by no more than 6 degrees of separation. So this was the first place where you could create an online profile, and the profile resembled the user's identity. So before we get into looking at the pros and cons of social media and gaming, I think it's really, really helpful to first look at the neuroscience of the brain and how these devices affect our children's developing brain. So because we've got just an hour, this is a very, very simplified explanation of the neuroscience of the teenage brain. And it's something to hold in mind as we go throughout the webinar. So the brain has regions that react to things that are exciting or rewarding, and regions of the brain that help you plan and control your impulses. These systems work together to help you learn. And as we know, brains are developing and changing as children and teens grow. This means the balance between the reward regions and control regions are changing too. These brain changes make children and teens more willing to explore, to take risks and learn from their friends. So it's a normal, healthy part of development. However, it is worth noting that these brain changes also make it hard for kids to regulate their behaviour, especially when friends are around or when there's a lot of excitement. So the teenage years are incredible, and they're a time for exploring and finding out who we are and how we show up in the world. So teenagers are learning a lot inside and outside the classroom. Between the ages of 10 and 24, there are huge changes happening in the brain and the body. The parts of the brain involved with social and reward processing are maturing faster than our cognitive control networks. So the cognitive control network is in charge of mental processes like attention, memory, and decision-making that guide thoughts and behaviors to help us achieve our goals. So this means that a teenager's capacity to make decisions and learn, just close that down, is affected by how exciting or how social the situation is. So keeping that in mind when we're thinking about technology, teenagers' capacity to make decisions and learn is affected by how exciting or social the situation is. Okay, so technology can enhance learning by tapping into the balance between reward and control. However, some technological features can also promote unhealthy social interactions or make it very hard to control our impulses online. So, given that the social emotional part of the brain is going fast, this means that teen development goals are about discovering who they are, developing relationships with others, fitting in with others, and being accepted by others. So all these things can be influenced by social media. Teens can end up paying a lot of attention to how many likes they receive when they're posting on social media, as it feels really important that they're liked by their peers. And it's important to them to feel popular and admired during this time of development. If they're getting likes, then the reward part of their brain is activated and the feelings are positive. So social media also gives them a chance to try out different identities and see what feels right to them. Again, that's another positive aspect. However, the desire to be popular and liked might encourage risky behavior, such as posting inappropriate content, revealing images, or emotional reactions. So they might post like mean comments, or they might get involved in conversations because they're being reactive. So this can cause feelings of stress, anxiety, and shame. Once it's posted, it can't be deleted. It's out there for all to see. So well-being and screen times, because technology and social media are still relatively new, it is difficult to know the real effects on this generation until they grow old. However, research does show that low usage of screens is associated with low well-being, and as is high use of screens. So as with anything in life, it's about moderation and about a balance. So what we can think about when we think about our young person being online, we can think about the quality of the activities that they are taking part in. So if we have a look at high quality activities of social media, that includes chatting with their friends, and they could be working on a project, so learning new skills. They might be learning new dance moves, or they might be creating content as well. So these activities create feelings of joy, happiness, and connection. So they're classed as high quality activities. So low quality activities would be doom scrolling, comparing yourself to others, using technology late into the night, and using technology to avoid feelings. These activities create feelings of sadness, anxiety, depression, envy, and loneliness. So let's have a look at the pros and cons of social media for young people. It continues to be debated, actually. So we'll take a look together and see what the benefits of social media are to our young people. And perhaps you can share some of your thoughts of the positive experience of social media in the chat function. We would really welcome your comments as well. So I'm sure if anyone's got anything to say. Let's have a look at the chat.
I've got some questions here, Jolene, that we'll answer later on. There was one here saying doom scrolling. Doom scrolling means searching through, trawling through YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, looking at really negative things. And looking at things that lower your mood and I guess exaggerate and exacerbate the unpleasant things that are part of life without balancing it again. So you might, I don't know, spend a lot of time searching about how the world's going to end, or self-harming, or eating disorders, things like that, where you're feeding your brain negative information. I think that's what it means, Jenny.
Yeah, and I'd say as well, I'd just add to that, Laura, of just If we go back to that kind of avoiding feelings, so you're just looking at your phone and you are literally just scrolling. You're not taking anything in, but hours go by and you've just kind of, just using your hand just to scroll through. So you're not taking anything positive in either. It's more of an avoidance thing, I would say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's both of those, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so
I'll try and enable the chat again. Otherwise, please pop things into the Q&A. I'm keeping an eye on that as well.
okay. So if we look to what teens need, they need connection. So we're all wired for social connection, and teens want to feel close to their peers. So social media actually is a great way to do this by sharing pictures, messaging friends or family or romantic interests. These are pros of social media. It's a great place for learning new things. Social media can be great for adolescents to learn new things, from the latest technology and websites to cooking, exercising, dancing, and being creative. So it's really wonderful to see your teen learning the latest dance craze on TikTok, or they can learn new passions and try different things. So they're kind of exposed to lots of different ideas, exposure to new cultures and ideas. With such wide connections, young people are exposed to new cultures and ideas. It can be fun to celebrate different traditions and learn about other cultures. There's an increase in self-confidence and self-esteem. This works on both sides. So if your pictures are getting a lot of likes and positive comments, then self-confidence and self-esteem is increased. However, if your teen is reliant upon social media for this, then there can also be a negative effect. So we'll come on to that on the next slide. And social media gives your young person a voice and identity. It allows them to share their opinions, share information with others that perhaps they can't do with their family and friends. So social media, it can be a form of self-expression for young people, and this is a really valuable experience, and it can be fun. Okay. So let's look at the cons of social media. Feeling bad about oneself. So this can come in the form of posting pictures and not receiving likes or receiving negative comments, being tagged in photos that you don't like. People can get quite mean on social media. And if we think back to that brain development and not having the control over the thought processes but being reactive, this is where that can come up. Or people can post hateful comments. Some end up ganging up or leaving anonymous trails as well. So being one step removed from a person or a situation can disinhibit us. So we say things that we wouldn't perhaps say face to face. Now, posting things can be addictive. Feeling like you need to post and getting a dopamine hit when people praise you, or you may have the feeling that you're doing something good. Okay, so you're always connected. You can never switch off. You're always on, really. That's another con there. I've got chasing negative goals. So using social media to complain about your life or for mocking others. And then, of course, there's the darker side of bullying, grooming, and inappropriate content. So social media is linked to a roller coaster of emotions to our young people, ranging from ecstatic at the top and empowered to anxious and bored. Research has started to zoom in on these emotions and their effects. And while some research is alarming, such as screen time being linked to suicide and depression, there is also reassuring research. Some teens find social media empowering. So there isn't a clear-cut positive or negative to social media. And in reality, it's a little bit of both. So what one person sees as positive will be different to another's. So let's talk about the positive and negative affect and effect. So when we talk about affect, we're referring to emotions and feelings that we experience when we're doing something. So it can be really helpful to consider the effect of social media on your child and determine if it's affecting them positively. So, for example, are they happy and cheerful when they're using social platforms? Are they energetic and joyful? Or do they appear lethargic, irritable, and anxious? So that's your negative affect. For relational interactions, teens felt happy to stay connected with peers, and many actually strengthen offline relationships with friends and significant others through social media. They enjoyed keeping in touch with faraway families. This was research done with teenagers. They enjoyed keeping in touch with faraway family members too, but they also felt overwhelmed by the number of messages they had to respond to. And many felt left out when they saw friends posting, they were posting together without them. When exploring, teens enjoyed learning more about their interests, such as cooking or sports, or exploring new passions, such as activism or gun control. But they also reported viewing, they also reported viewing distressing and graphic images and stories. Okay. So when browsing, teens often felt amused and inspired by the different photos and videos they came across, but they also saw things that made them envious, insecure, or sad. A peer with thousands of followers, a deluge of images of attractive people, or even posts expressing appreciation for a parent or sibling, if they personally didn't have that type of familial relationship. So that research was done by Harvard Education. It's the ups and downs of social media, which we'll put the link on so you can have a view of that. So looking at what teenagers need, we can see where social media fits in. So we said they need connection. They can connect to their friends and family. Social media can deepen these connections. They find enjoyment in seeing what others are doing. Social media allows them to be seen, heard, and valued. So with social media, they have a voice. They're learning new passions and interests. Social media opens this up for them, and they're exposed to a wide range of topics that they can learn about and try at home. They need space, nutrition, and sleep. And this is where we as parents and carers can come in, supporting and coaching our young people to understand that life is a balance. And while social media is a big part of their lives, it doesn't have to be their whole life. So we will come back to this. We will look more at this further down. So we're going to have a look at video gaming. So in this section of the presentation, we're looking at video gaming, and we're going to cover the following. Is gaming bad for your mental health? Do parents need to watch the amount of screen time? And how to set healthy gaming limits. So is gaming bad for your mental health? as with social media, it still isn't clear if video games contribute to poor mental health. For years, gaming has been criticised for contribution to mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, and aggression. But studies show this isn't always the case. So yes, there may be potential negative outcomes. There are also positive outcomes too. And as with everything in life, it's a balance. For most adolescents, playing video games is an enjoyable and often social form of entertainment. While playing video games is a fun pastime, there is growing concern that spending too much time playing video games is related to negative development outcomes and can become an addiction. So one of the main concerns with video games is the perceived risk of addiction. Yet a 2020 study found that most gamers play without any long-term negative effect. The study revealed only 10% of what the study defined as pathological video gameplay. So the most current evidence is telling us that video games, violent or not, are not likely to make our kids more anxious, depressed, aggressive, or violent. In fact, studies suggest that predispositions to mental health problems like depression and anxiety are more important to pay attention to than the video game exposure, violent or not. Okay. So, how gaming affects your brain. So a new study reveals how playing video games not only changes our brain functions, but also the structure of the brain. Most gamers play on consoles or computers, but we're now seeing games played on smartphones and tablets. So any spare minute, you have access to games. Given this information, we know that video games are an increasingly common form of entertainment. So we're going to have a look at what effect they have on our brains and behavior. Some studies found that gamers show improvements in several types of attention, such as sustained attention or selective attention. And the brain regions involved in attention are also more efficient in gamers and require less activation to sustain attention on demanding tasks. We also know that video games can be addictive, and this kind of addiction is called internet gaming disorder. So researchers have found functional and structural changes in the neural reward system in gaming addicts, in part by exposing them to gaming cues that cause cravings and monitoring their neural responses. These neural changes are basically the same as those seen in other addictive disorders. So what does all these brain changes mean? Well, as with social media, video games are still quite new. The research into its effect is still in its infancy. For example, researchers are still working out what aspects of games affect which brain regions and how. So it's likely that video games have both positive effects, so on attention, visual and motor skills, and the negative aspects are the risk of addiction. And it's essential that we embrace this complexity. So whilst the focus of gaming is usually on the negative effects, let us look at the benefits gaming can bring to your child or teenager. So relaxation and a mood booster. A long-term study published in 2013 shows that some games can actually improve the player's moods, promote relaxation, and ward off anxiety. Other games helped children develop problem-solving skills and enhance their creativity. It gives them confidence. For some young people, gaming helps them feel confident. They're able to connect with parts of themselves that perhaps they can't show others in social situations. Gaming can be a healthy distraction to help manage difficult feelings and counteract negative self-talk. There's the social connection. More than 70% of gamers play with their friends and they cooperate together in virtual worlds, developing strong teamwork skills. This challenges the stereotype of the isolated gamer. And there is improved focus. An hour of video gaming has been shown to improve the brain's ability to focus and concentrate. It isn't proven how long these effects last, but it does show that there is some short-term evidence to show this. So let's have a look at what too much technology looks like. So this is very generic and it's not an exhaustive list, but the physical signs, dry eyes, blurred vision, headaches, neck and shoulder pain, and repetitive strain injury. The contributing factors to this are posture, screen glare, bad lighting, and improper viewing distance. And the repetitive strain injury in the fingers, thumbs, and wrists can travel up the neck, and this can occur as a result of overusing technology. Sleep problems, so that can occur due to exposure to the blue light. Studies reveal this can suppress melatonin production and interrupt circadian rhythm. The resulting effect is difficulty falling asleep and being less alert in the mornings. And just going back to one of the things that our young people need is sleep. So it is a good idea to remove technology from the bedroom so temptation is out of reach. And then emotional signs, so feeling anxious and or depressed, anger and irritability. So while social media can help you feel more connected to the world, if you find yourself comparing yourself to others, then you might be left with feelings of inadequacy. If you find social media is leaving your child feeling anxious, depressed, angry, or irritable, then try cutting back a little just to see if it makes a difference. So perhaps you could journal the feelings so you can take a look together and establish a balance. So what a recent study by the Mayo Clinic reported the problems with screen. Too much screen time and regular exposure to poor quality programming has been linked to obesity, inadequate sleep schedules and insufficient sleep, behavior problems, delays in language and social skills development, violence, attention problems, less time learning. So keep in mind that unstructured playtime is more valuable for a young child's developing brain than electronic media. So when things go out of balance, and you're noticing some of the signs mentioned above, or you feel your child does not have a healthy relationship with screens or is missing out on other activities, or you find yourself constantly arguing over screen time. So when you're all fatigued by it, when things just don't feel right, some things you can do. You can stop and remember that this is not an emergency. The situation is highlighting that something needs to change. So ask yourself these questions. what is my child getting from being online? And think back to their needs and what needs social media or gaming is providing them. Is there another way that these needs can be met? So if you're taking away something like screen time, then what are you replacing it with? Have a think about what you could replace it with. Another question to ask yourself is, what is my fear? What is my concern? What is my frustration? Am I projecting that they will fail all their exams if they stay online? That they will become depressed or suicidal? So what is happening for you? What are you worried about? So be reflective on what it is that's bothering you. Or is it that they aren't doing the things you're asking them to do because they're online? And then ask yourself, am I being clear on what I would like to happen so that we can talk about it? So remember, in the first instance, your child or teen may not like what you have to say. But be calm, clear, and concise. Stay present. If you know what it is that you want to happen, then you can stay with this. Be flexible with your boundaries, providing you listen to what your child has to say as well. So maybe they have a good reason for the things they're doing. If you listen and you can work together. So state what you want to happen, not what you don't want to happen. For example, I don't want you on your phone till 1 a.m. in the morning. But maybe you could rephrase that to something along the lines of, it is better for our overall health and sleep patterns if we switch off our phones 1 hour before bedtime. So let's see what time would work for you and see what we can work out. So give your child space to say why they're on their phone at 1 a.m. Maybe they have a worry and they haven't told anyone, and actually scrolling is helping them to regulate so that they can get to sleep. Talk to your child or teen about what they're missing out on by being on their phones. For example, going to the cinema, out for dinner, the trampoline park, getting a good night's sleep, painting, exercising, whatever it is that they like doing, they aren't doing it if they're attached to their screens. Creating a balance. So how, as parents or carers, can we help our teenagers navigate the world of social media in the same way as we help children navigate any other things, with boundaries, guidance, and collaboration, with respect to their developmental age? We can be curious, so we can show an interest in what they're looking at on social media, or find things yourself that they might like to follow. You know your child, you know what motivates them and what they love doing. You could join in with them. If they're learning the latest dance craze or Be Real post, then skill yourself up on it. It can be fun. Obviously, don't embarrass them because that could backfire as well. But you will be surprised by their reactions when they see you want to learn about their world. Work collaboratively together to set limits on social media. Maybe it's different week by week, depending on their schedule. So perhaps this week they have mid-years to revise for. So maybe work together to build this into their timetable and think about what times to put in place. Or perhaps social media is a good help for them whilst they're revising. Maybe they're connecting with their friends to alleviate the stress of studying. So could they do, in this example, could they do 20 minutes revision and then maybe 20 minutes on the socials, but work together to find a balance. Be an effective role model. If your child sees you on social media constantly, think about what message that's sending them. So perhaps live your life out loud. Let them know when you've been caught up in just scrolling. and what you're doing to create your own limits, and share with them the things that you like to look at if it's age appropriate. But perhaps you look at creative media, beautiful pictures, motivational quotes, or funny clips of people, animals, but let them into your world as well. Show them what you're looking at. So screen time limits. So do parents still need to watch screen time? And the short answer to this question is yes. So asking yourself, what other valuable activities is my child missing out on for social, emotional, and creative development? If they're constantly on a screen, then they aren't doing other things such as using their imaginations to create things that are not given to them by developers, such as storytelling, drawing, painting, structures, fantasy play. So this is why we need to create boundaries. And how do we know if their mental health is being affected? We can pay attention to what else is going on for them. Many young people are still feeling the effects of the pandemic or pressure of exams at school, and they may be using video gaming, social media to cope. This is okay. But what we can do is pay attention to what is going on in their lives and to think about how games can be supportive to their well-being. So how much is too much? Some experts say that excessive gaming is when it begins interfering with other activities, such as outside activities, schoolwork, eating, and sleeping. Medical experts say no more than 2 hours per day for children, and for teens, 2 hours or less. Gaming in excess of 5 hours per day is shown to have a negative effects on mental health. So some of the signs to look for and symptoms to look out for in excessive gaming are preoccupation with gaming or specific video games, withdrawal from normal activities and relationships, lying about the amount of time spent on games, use of gaming to deal with negative emotions or feelings, changes in mood or behaviour, decline in schoolwork, including increased absence. So we do need to set clear limits with our children, and we can do this by creating a media plan together. So setting limits and creating a plan together can help your child or teen to enjoy social media and gaming in a healthy way without the risk of it being excessive. Educate yourself on the effects of social media on the brain. So you can refer back to these slides, the neuroscience. And please don't expect your child to stop playing their game or social media to then immediately interact with the family. So for meal times or conversations, this is really hard to do. So think about how you feel when you've been on a screen, either socially or working. Like, it's really hard to move out of your head and connect back to your surroundings. So some ideas you can try, and these are age dependent. So think about what will work for your child, but maybe coming off of the screen, like if it's dinner time, for example, and doing some kind of movement. So whether that's trampolining, body brushing, stamping feet, dancing, barefoot, walking in the garden, moving your arms around, but it's just to help your child connect back to their surroundings and to let go of the game that they've been playing. Maybe you could play together, set up family gaming time and play together. So this way you get to be with your child, you learn what they are playing, and it creates interactions with the whole family. Also, playing with friends is an option to increase that social connection. If your child plays a lot of violent games, then consider finding alternatives. And of course, encourage other interests. So creating a healthy balance with other interests and hobbies can help your child or teen have healthier gaming habits. So here's some top tips for teens. And that is to pay attention to the quality and content. So what you do online rather than the total of the screen time. Think about those high quality activities. Use technology actively, so creating videos, writing stories, chatting with friends and family, using videos to learn new skills. So instead of passively, like scrolling through a celebrity's account, so using it actively instead of passively. Avoid multitasking. So when they're doing their homework, perhaps they turn off their phones. Make sure that using your devices is not taking time away from other things such as exercise, getting enough sleep, doing homework, and interacting with friends and family. And then when you go to sleep, keep your device outside of your bedroom. And I know some say they use it for their alarm, but maybe get an alarm clock instead. And turn off all the defaults in the apps that might make it hard to control their use, like video autoplay and notifications. And then take responsibility for your own engagement with digital media and create a technology, use a contract that makes sense for you and your family. Some things to be aware of. So the NSPCC is an excellent source of information. So things we need to be aware of are cyberbullying, live streaming, inappropriate content, grooming, and sexting. Children can be exposed to harmful content online, such as material encouraging anorexia, self-harm, or suicide. Perpetrators of child abuse and exploitation can form online communities and share child abuse images online. Children might unknowingly interact with the perpetrator of child sexual abuse and be groomed or coerced into sharing sexual images of themselves. Disinhibition, writing stuff in the safety of your own room, with the impulsivity and emotion of a teenage brain. And there's no escape from the bullies. So if there's no limits in the house, online bullying, harassment, or messages directed at your child can turn to feelings of sadness, anxiety, which in turn then contribute to low self-esteem, self-harm, eating disorders, and in some cases, suicidal ideation. So it's important that you speak to your young person about this and let them know they can talk to you or find a trusted adult they can turn to should this happen. And teens seek their own tribe. So if a child is vulnerable, then they may build relationships with online contacts promoting this type of content and feel pressured or encouraged by them to engage in harmful behavior. So all things to really be aware of. Have conversations with your child, communicate and educate yourself and them. Understand the dangers of the internet and how you can make it a safer world for them. So if you choose to put time limits on or monitor which sites your child can view, then there's plenty of apps to help you do that. There's a lot of information on e-safety out there. So get yourself clued up, have an understanding of how you can help and look at this together with your child. Explain why you're doing what you're doing and have the conversation. And remember, they want autonomy over their lives, so let them be part of the process. Be aware of your privacy settings. If these are not watertight, then your personal and cyber safety could be compromised. Sometimes apps automatically update and privacy settings are changed, so it's a good idea to check these regularly. Be aware of the information you give out, as the content you see is based on information you've given when you sign up. Sometimes you may not even be aware you're giving information out, such as your date of birth, where you live, etc. Make sure you go through this with your child. So what we can see from this presentation is that social media and gaming is all about balance. Always consider, what is my child not doing or missing out on whilst they are on screens? And what is my child getting out of being on a screen? And how can they get these needs met in other ways? So in summary, we've covered the following items: looking at how things have changed over time, the pros and cons of social media, what to do when things go out of balance, gaming, what parents need to know, and tips and strategies. So I can see, Laura, we've got quite a lot in the Q&A and in the chat.
No, we've got several questions in the Q&A, some really good points in the chat to explore.
Okay.
So if I stopped listening because I was answering something else, so please do, have you done the bit about scanning the QR code? And
no. So we have asked you to complete.
I'll let you do that bit and then I'll speak.
Okay, so we do have a little survey for you to complete. So if you can scan the QR code, I'll also put the link in the chat if I can.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It was really just to say thank you very much for coming along and listening. And we will be staying on for another half an hour to go through any questions that are there. As I say, you will get the link, you will get these slides, and there's a lot there of links that are also helpful to have a look at. Okay, so we'll put the link in the, if you could spend just a couple of minutes to do the Survey Monkey, that would be really helpful to us. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now.
It does make, sorry. Yeah,
it's okay.
It does make a massive difference if you can give us feedback, because it helps inform our next ones as well.
Okay, and then we'll stop recording so we can answer the questions.
Brilliant. So